First of all, I want to thank the conference committee for accepting me in this conference. I am Ali Alidmat, a PhD student at USM University School of Languages and Literacies and Translation. The co-author of this paper is Dr. Manjit Kuwar Singh. This paper is entitled Trends in the Use of Commissives in the Informal Judicial System. I will start with the abstract in order to give an overview of this paper. So, literature review has shown that trends in that speech acts take in their performances of legal actions are dependent on events that define legal settings. These events have been referred to as felicity conditions. Influence of these conditions on performance of legal action by speech acts has been attested in formal legal settings with a scanty research on informal legal settings. This article sets out to fill this gap or this study gap with focus being on the investigation of trends in the use of commissive speech acts in the informal legal system, Sulha. Qualitative and quantitative research designs, descriptive and survey respectively were used in this study. The data were audio recordings of proceedings from sampled Sulha tribunals. Some of these of the data are products of interviews of Sulha participants and synthesis of archived dispute-related cases previously handled by Sulha. The analysis of data is done within the framework of Speech Act theory to show the trends adopted in Sulha tribunals in making commitments by different participants in solving disputes. The results of this study show that patterns exhibited by commissive speech acts and their frequencies during Sulha proceedings are determined by the informal legal setting in Sulha tribunals. There are 8 kinds of commissive speech acts realized in Sulha proceedings: promise, swear, vow, threat, guarantee, warning, acceptance, and offer. The 8 commissive speech acts are realized either explicitly or implicitly. As established in this article, some of the commissive speech acts can elicit other commissives, and a number of commissives can also be resultant forces of other speech acts, such as the acts of directives. The findings to this study is expected to help in understanding of how forms of language used in the Sulha enhance adoption and discharge of commitment during Sulha proceedings. The enactment of law is understood to be dependent on language, given that the performance of legal duty is achievable through proper language use. A language becomes properly used when it performs its intended purpose. One of the main factors that contribute to language's performance of its intended purpose is to contextualize its operation. Therefore, for performance of a legal action, a language needs to operate within a legal setting, which may be defined by factors known as felicity conditions, such as rules of evidence, power manifestation, and discriminations among users of the languages in such settings. It is through the constraints of felicity conditions in a particular setting that a specific pattern, the use of a speech act, is established. Worth noting is that trials in legal judicial systems follow generic patterns divided into different phases, in which case each phase is characterized by unique use of language. Habitual employment of these patterns to enact law forms a trend specific to legal context in question. This makes it necessary to study the underlying trends adopted in enactment of commitment in an informal legal system, Sulha. Sulha can be defined as an arbitration mechanism designed to facilitate dispute resolution in the Arab society, in which an Arabic dialect Bedouin is used as the language for communication. The Sulha mechanism is used when a serious crime is committed in the Bedouin society. The peace agreement after the crime or dispute follows a resolution follows a resolution process called Sulha. As observed by Fur and Al-Sirhan 2008, Sulh process involves commitment by the participants toward acceptance of outcomes, giving true and reliable pieces of information pertaining to the case. For this commitment to be achieved, appropriate commissive speech acts need to be put in place. The performative of these commissive speech acts are context specific, hence an expectation of a unique trend in the use of the commissives to carry out Sulha trials. In literature, when serving literature review, we can discover that a number of previous studies have been conducted on the use of speech acts in the legal context or discourse. But there was only one study conducted on the use of speech acts in the informal legal discourse conducted in 2019 by Ali and Ayasra. So by serving this literature review, we can notice that legal texts are understood to adopt and discharge obligations and commitments. Such texts, according to Fiorito in 2006, are called performatives. These performatives can come in form of offers, swears, acceptance, pledge, bending on the intent of the speaker. Language of offer and acceptance has been reported to be common in legal settings as means of making commitment by participants. According to Kigor in 2014 and Teresma in 1986, offer and acceptance as examples of commissive speech acts are not matters of expression or manifestation of intent. Rather, they are acts that commit the speaker to a particular course of conduct. Therefore, the speaker must intend to create in the hearer the perception that in saying the words, the speaker is committing himself to a particular proposal. Teresma in 1986 adds that offer and acceptance achieve their performative by adhering certain rules operationalized by formal legal setting. Another study was conducted in 2000 by Abdul Jawad, which looks at the phenomenon of swearing in Jordanian Arabic, which according to him is all about oath-taking devoid of tabooed words, profane language forms for cursing and insulting others, or in the expression of anger. According to him, swearing is a kind of a speech act by which a person binds himself to do or not to do a certain specific physical or judicial act. To be particular, Abdul Jawad in 2000 adds that in Jordanian society, the name of God, Allah, or one of the divine attributes must be invoked to satisfy the act. Other things included in the swearing are things such as holy books, prophet, messengers, important people, family members, holy places, creatures, moral values, or times. All these, according to Abdul Jawad, are included in the swearing to make the act more performant. Based on the existing literature on Commissive Speech Act, there is only one documented study has been done on the operation of these acts on the Sulha proceeding by Alidmat and Ayasra in 2019. The study by Alidmat and Ayasra discusses the use of Commissive Speech Acts of offer and acceptance in the Sulha tribunal and their commissive implication in the tribunal. This opens a steady gap in the operation of other commissive speech acts in the Sulha tribunals and the patterns formed by these acts in the adoption and discharge of commitments in the Sulha tribunals. The outcome of the current study is wish to improve the functionality of the process among the Bedouins, improving its effectiveness among its participants, and learn commissive speech acts that can be used to enhance proper use of language during Sulha processes. Research methodology. This study applied descriptive research design using a qualitative approach to obtain qualitative data. The researcher used interviews and audio recording for clarity and convenience purposes. The interviews were administrated by the researcher. The target group for these interviews was Sulha officials who were subjected to open-ended kind of questions These questions were about the officials' use of commissive speech acts to adopt and discharge commitment during Sulha proceedings. The open-ended questions yielded responses that were multiple in characters. These responses were fed into the data editor using an Excel software to provide summary and trends in the use of commissive speech acts in Sulha proceedings. Data was also collected using audio recording and note-taking from 4 trials, each containing sessions of defense, complaint, hearing, and judgment. The choice of the 4 trials was based on the accessibility of the trials. In terms of the procedure of data collection, the data were first obtained by audio recording of Sulha proceedings, which were conducted in Bedouin. Audio recorded data were also transcribed, after which the English equivalents of the transcriptions were identified. It is from the English equivalents that commissive speech acts were purposefully sampled, with focus being on their subcategories. For quantitative approach, data was gathered through survey, which involves symbols, statistical analysis. Using statistical analysis, the frequencies of occurrence of each commissive speech act in Sulha tribunals was counted and their percentages tabulated. This approach was used to establish the frequency of the 8 commissive speech acts in Sulha tribunals. Really, I'm so sorry for not being able to complete the whole presentation, because the time given to each participant is 10 to 12 minutes. So the 12 minutes has ended. I'm so sorry for that. Thank you for taking care.